A few years ago, I did a beach metal detecting tutorial that just got over 100,000 views. The one you're about to watch is going to be just as helpful. I've learned a lot since. Let's talk about the dynamics of the beach. If you understand how the beach moves and consider where things are dropped, you've got the best chance of getting treasure. You might have heard that there's no two fingerprints that are alike in the world. It's like that with the beach. There's no 2 days in a row, or ever, that the beach is exactly the same. There are a lot of variables on the beach. Right off the top of my head, here's some of the variables: wind speed and direction, wave speed and direction, weather events, sand levels and the amount of sand, location of where an item was dropped. Here, these are items. We mean treasure there. Physical properties of items dropped, such as weight or surface area, number of depositors, that is metal detector slang for people who drop stuff, and number of detectorists who share a beach. In other words, your competition. That might not make sense to you yet, but I promise you that it will. Grab a frickin' popcorn, hit the like button, hit subscribe if you haven't done so already. You're about to learn a lot. Let's go!
Part 1, Wind Speed and Direction.
And Part 2, Wave Speed and Direction.
Wind moves water. Water moves sand. I mean, wind can also move sand, but if you're talking about the wet of the beach, you want a lot of movement in that section. It rattles up the treasure. The ocean is a repository of treasure. When there is a huge onflow onto the beach, say a big storm offshore, it looks just like this under the water. You get these eerie, creeping dunes of sand, and you better believe if treasure was dropped there, say somebody dropped a ring, it's going to be spit up upon the beach. But although waves seem to go in and out, that onflow that you just saw does not happen every day. And yes, I got a haircut mid-video. Let's go! So this app is called the Windy app, and it is a big help. It tells you the direction of the wind and the direction of the water. The green arrow is the wind, the blue arrow is the water. Let me zoom in and show you what it looks like. So, you got wind speed and direction. That's the green arrow over here. The blue arrow, it's wave height, and this is swell period down here. If you have a high swell period, and these are the intervals between waves, that's what this means. And you have high wave height. Actually, it doesn't even really need to be high wave height. If you this is the most important one right here. If you have swell periods that are longer than the norm, you can understand that sand is going to be coming off of the beach. If you want treasure items, gold rings and stuff, spit up upon the beach, what you want is a storm with a storm surge during high tide.
Wait, you are doing Part 3 already?
Yeah, sorry, I'm ADHD as
Oh wow, that's sad.
I would estimate in New York, we have maybe about 20 to 25 significant events each year, and maybe another 10 to 15 moderate events. But let's get back to the app. All right, let me just show you this. It goes down. You get historical stuff at the very bottom, the bottom two rows, and it tells you the swell height, swell size, and swell period. So these are swells, and the time in between these crashing on the beach are swell intervals. How do I know this? Oh, it's because of my bra right here. Surfers look for swells. I don't think it's a coincidence that some of my best days metal detecting happened when surfers have been in the water. If you go, let's go into the future a little bit. I notice when there is a shift in the direction of the wind and water. Let's see if we could find one. There's a shift in the wind. Oh, and there's the shift in the water. Right there. This is where you're going to find a cut. For anybody that is brand new to beach metal detecting, this is a cut. And as you can see, you have a low beach here, and you have a sandy beach up here. A cut is what we look for, and it shows us that there was a cut into the lower beach. And if you think of heavy items, if you don't have the wave speed, the heavy items are going to fall, they're going to drop, and they could end up right here and then in your scoop. This is where you're going to get a beach cut. Is this going to be a significant one? Not so much. 4.7 seconds of swell period right there. I would say that is, that's going to be a decent cut, but not anything spectacular. Going a little bit further into the future, well, you get higher swell periods here, and this is beyond where they predicted. When you're talking about selecting which beach to go to, if you have a variety of beaches, you're looking for events that are a standard deviation beyond the norm. You also have to remember the natural layout of the land. Like, here's Long Island. I go to all of these beaches, and I go to these ones too. You have to consider the direction of the wind. You have to consider how the land is laid out. A few seconds ago, I was talking about events that were a standard deviation beyond the norm, at least. But to understand the norm, you need to understand currents. I recommend that you check out NASA's Perpetual Ocean. It does a great job of visualizing ocean currents. The meaning of perpetual means never ending or changing. The ocean is really a big Rube Goldberg device, and ocean currents are primarily influenced by wind patterns, the rotation of the Earth or Coriolis effect, and differences in water density due to variations in temperature and salinity. Wind drives surface currents, while the Coriolis effect causes currents to veer to the right in the northern hemisphere and the left in the southern hemisphere. Density differences lead to thermohaline circulation, which moves water vertically and horizontally across the globe. We don't need to be earth scientists to be beach metal detectorists, but what you know can help you, especially if you understand what longshore drift is. So here's Google's definition of longshore drift. Longshore drift is a geological process that occurs when waves move in the direction of the prevailing wind at an angle to the beach, carrying sediment along the coast in a sheet formation. That's really cute. Now here's my definition for metal detectorists. You can think of longshore drift as the norm. You're aware of currents now, and is the natural flow of the water, the natural direction of the water. Now, so that you can see longshore drift, I opened up Google Earth, and I have it in time lapse. You can see right here it is cycling through years. Look at what's happening here. The direction of the water is in this general direction and you could see what it is doing to this coastline, this shoreline. It's going in this general direction. So every day there is sediment moving on the beach. That is the norm. But events can really affect the speed and direction of the sediment movement. And if it goes against the natural direction of longshore drift, that's when you have, usually when you have a good day. And when you can have a spectacular day is when you have a storm that has a storm surge, a push-in event that happens at high tide. That's when the swim area comes in and gets deposited on the beach that you normally sit on or walk on.
Part 4. Sand levels and the amount of sand.
So earlier in the year, I went to the Canadian Rockies with the family. What really surprised me was at the top of the mountain, I was seeing the process that ended up in grains of sand. So I'm at the top of a mountain here. What's fascinating me is the erosion. Look at that. Look at that. Loose, eroding stones at the tops of mountains. Look at that. And look at how water always finds the lowest point and carves. Sand reaches a beach through a combination of processes including weathering, erosion, and transportation. Weathering breaks down rocks into smaller particles, which are then transported by rivers, streams, and wind. Once these sediments reach the coastline, waves and currents carry and deposit them onto the beach, continually replenishing the sand supply. It's important for you to know that sand is not equally or evenly distributed to all beaches in the world. In the Northeast, it is not uncommon for beach collapses, people trying to dig down and get to the bottom of the beach, and it costs them their life. Whereas in other parts of the world, it is not entirely uncommon for sand to blow on and off of a beach. Think about it. We've had billions of years of Earth's erosion processes and the redistribution of sand. The more sand that's on a beach, the more levels there are to a beach, and the more stuff can easily get hidden. Now, I recently became the ambassador for XP Metal Detectors, and it's routine to pull 20-inch targets on the beach, and that's pretty darn spectacular with the XP Deus 2 metal detector. But if you're talking about a beach that goes down 20 to 40 feet, you got 20 inches there.
Part 5. Location of where an item was dropped.
And Part 6. Physical properties of items dropped, density, weight, surface area.
It is my working hypothesis that beach drops happen in the dry sand when items fall out of people's pockets or people's bags. As for my hypothesis of the wet sand, the reason you see so many coins, people put coins in the pockets of their bathing suit, and when they walk in the water, an air bubble happens, and their pockets go inside out. As for rings, you know your hands get wrinkled with more exposure to the water. It makes rings drop right off. And there's another element that I like to call upside down time. I've seen people lose a lot of chains because they said they were swimming. They do a flip, forgetting that they were wearing a chain, and it just falls off. I think that there's more unintentional drops in the wet than the dry, and you get a lot of garbage in the dry, but you could definitely... I've actually had a good year in the dry this year before I went into the wet. Flow profiles. Let's say that we get a big event where there is a lot of... there's a storm surge, water pushing in and pushing in the sand. Which one of these objects do you think would move the furthest in the case of a storm surge, assuming that they're dropped in the water? If you said this or this, you know, you have a surface here, that's going to go further. These are going to go further. This would struggle to move. This is the heaviest of the object. This would struggle to move. This would struggle to move also. It's got a surface that could perhaps bring it a little bit, as does this, but this is just super heavy. You have to consider that. Now, put up with my bad animation skills here. We're considering this a beach. We're looking from above. Here's the waves. Yeah, that's my animation skills right there, okay? Now, this stuff is not to scale. We're going to say this is the dry beach back here. And here is a ring drop that's totally to scale with the beach towels here. Now, this is usually a slope area, so it's going uphill. And as the waves go up here, they slow down. And the carry that goes with it, let's say that there was a wave, let's say that there was a ring that was dropped over in here. It'll carry it until that speed slows down and makes it drop. Now, let's say there was a big event, and let's say that the waves go all the way into the dry. I have it underneath here, but let's say that this goes over. I don't think that this would have the momentum to be pulled in here. You could have what's called a shelf collapse, where you get a cut and then this front section collapses. But I think once you get a heavy object in this section of the beach, it is not coming up. Lighter stuff could get pulled into the water, bottle caps, maybe even some coins if there's like a storm surge that goes back and then the waves recede. But remember, it could also fall down too. So I think it's entirely possible if something is dropped, it gets spit back upon the beach. But once it reaches a certain section, it's probably not going back into the waves. But what you usually get with the action of the waves is the objects that do have flow, like coins, they usually form a patch or a coin line here. And Generally speaking, the stuff that is less flowy, yeah, it'll move. I believe it'll move. But if it was dropped in the water, it's not going to end up back here, unless if there's a huge storm surge. But it could end up right in here. You usually look a little bit south of the coin line.
Part 7, Number of Depositors.
And Part 8, Number of Detectorists.
I get some people that are like, Merrill, I follow all of your tips and I still cannot find anything. What am I doing wrong? It has everything to do with carrying capacity. I'm going to link to a video that I did this more in depth, but it's pretty much number of depositors divided by number of detectorists. You could also throw in the amount of sand that's on a beach and also the conditions. Like if you're detecting a beach that has no wave speed whatsoever and you're on the dry sand like looking for stuff, yeah, you could get dry drops, but there's no push in there. Like it's different. Like if you're detecting a lake, some lakes like the Great Lakes have some waves, but it's nothing like a surf beach here. You got to understand that, and in that case, you would have to go in the water. So think of this scenario in terms of detectorists versus depositors. Let's say that you get a beach that gets 100,000 people per summer, and you have 100 detectorists. That's a high number of detectorists, and we're very efficient. We know how to pull things. If there's other options out there, look for other options or get there first. Then again, if you have a beach that the objects move, if there's a lot of sand and a lot of water movement, some of these objects might be hidden for a long time. And it could be that you show up on the beach one day, nobody else did, and you hit bonanza.
Final thoughts.
This is a video to watch again because the concepts that are taught in it are so important to beach metal detecting, and it's very thorough. It pretty much encompasses all of the main points. Now, why am I showing you these books? Because I'm going to be talking in a live stream in a follow-up to this video with Mr. Terry Shannon, who literally wrote the book on beach metal detecting. Terry himself is a national treasure. We're going to be giving away those books in the live stream and some other stuff too. But we're going to be talking to Terry, who was very formative to me and my learning of beach metal detecting. I read his books when I was searching for answers, and, I pass on what I know for sure. It's a great opportunity to ask Terry questions, and we're going to be looking at this video a bit and maybe having Terry reflect off of it, and we'll see where the conversation goes. But my point is I want you to be a part of the conversation. Thanks for watching, and many more videos coming. Happy hunting.